moratorium here in New York State. That is why October 1st was chosen, because this is the day the courts are set to reopen, which means this is the day that tenants are set to start being put back into the streets in the middle of a pandemic. We have seen since March that COVID has killed about 200,000 people. And we know that being homeless in a pandemic is likely a death sentence. We also know that there are millions of tenants around the country who are on the hook right now for thousands of dollars in unpaid rent due to wage loss from COVID. There is absolutely no way any tenant can get any job that would pay them enough money to pay up all of that back rent.
That ain't right! That ain't right!
All right.
The governor signed an executive order that is supposedly an extension of the moratorium. However, that is not actually the case. All it does is give the authority to the Tenant Safe Harbor Act. The Tenant Safe Harbor Act is not a proper eviction moratorium. It will not actually prevent evictions in the same way a universal moratorium will. And if the tenants go to court and for some reason are actually not evicted, that does not protect them from money judgment. Meaning they can still then be told by the courts that you have to pay all of that back rent moving forward, including whatever your monthly rent is. There is no way that they could ever catch up on that, and that means their credit scores will be ruined, and as long as credit scores are a part of a background check for renting an apartment, their future housing will now be in jeopardy for possibly the rest of their lives.
That ain't right!
So, we are here because there are 3 bills proposed on the state that we are asking our state legislators to take leadership on, and then for the governor to then sign after. They are an expanded eviction moratorium, which will take effect until about a year after the pandemic is declared no longer an emergency. Which meaning the pandemic is no longer declared an emergency on December 15th, the moratorium would last until December of 2021. That honestly is not a solution.
That ain't right!
It's not right at all. All that is a stalling tactic.
That's right.
They're liars!
That is enough to try and buy us time to figure out what we're going to do for all the tenants who are not able to pay rent and for all the small homeowners who depend on that rent or will lose the home that not only they rent out to people, but that they live in with their family. When we look at home ownership, in my opinion, you still a renter. You either renting from the government and you paying taxes, or your landlord is that bank that you own a mortgage through.
That ain't right!
As far as I'm concerned, you can be put on the street and evicted just like we can. And we're going to see this domino effect if the rent is not canceled. Yeah, that's another bill. Cancel rent is designed to put a fund to the side in order to give small mom and pop landlords, specifically and directly, the financial assistance. The problem with rent relief is that it goes to every landlord regardless of how much money they have. As long as your tenant fills out the application, up until when the money is gone. There is no reason that big developers who make millions every year should then be allowed to benefit from that rental relief money when you have small mom and pop landlords who will be put out on the street along with their tenants. Our goal is a homes guarantee, which means everyone deserves a place to live regardless of race, gender identity, sexuality. It doesn't matter.
Right!
The third bill is the Housing Access Voucher Program, which again, we know that homelessness is likely a death sentence here during the pandemic. And that is designed to put money aside to help homeless people finally receive housing. Homeless people cannot shelter in place, they cannot stay home if there is no home.
That's right!
And what many people don't realize about the shelters is that there's a lot of times if you don't have ID, you can't get a cot. How many people have been homeless for years and don't have a birth certificate, don't have an ID, don't have their social security card? And in a time when the DMV is only taking appointments, which may take 2 to 3 weeks or possibly even months to get your ID, as we move into fall and winter is closely approaching, These people will die before they are able to find a cot to stay in, let alone an actual home. That ain't right. So we are here because this is a day and this is the moment when our state legislators and our governor can decide to do the right thing. This is a pivotal moment in the history of not only our state but our country. And this is the moment when we will remember who decided to act and who wanted to act and who didn't.
Let's go.
Because when people are dying on the streets, the people who won't extend the eviction moratorium, who won't cancel rent, who won't pass the housing access voucher program, everybody that dies will be your fault.
That's right.
That is down from our president, to our governor, to our assembly people, to our state senator. We need to fight for a homes guarantee at the city level, the state level, and the federal level. And that is why today is so important. This is the turning point. This is the climax. And the falling action we see will either be one of love and healing and restoration and true commitment to our citizens and to the people in the community, or it will be a line of death. And it will be a continuation of COVID-19. As far as I'm concerned, I cannot sit back and afford to watch any of my family and friends become homeless and die to COVID-19 because our government refused to act. This is also a moment in time when a lot of tenants are struggling to pay rent but live in substandard housing. The Attorney General has a lawsuit right now for 157 houses
That ain't right.
owned by the Angel Elfin from 07 to 2020. All 157 houses have been cited for being a lead paint hazard at some point in those 13 or 14 years, including the house I live in,
That ain't right.
including the house my aunt lives in,
That ain't right.
including the houses of 155 other people that live in my neighborhood.
That ain't right. That's dirty.
You're telling me that we are leaving tenants on the hook for thousands of dollars in rent when they're living in homes that could possibly be contaminated by lead?
That ain't right.
I've had lead poisoning as a child. I basically have arthritis in my knees from it because I got lead poisoning as a toddler because the landlord did not take care of the lead paint on the windowsills. That means there are 157 houses where that is a possible reality for adults and their children. Yet you're telling me that paying landlords their rent, especially $1 million and billionaires, is more important than taking care of people's housing and making sure we have safe, stable, accessible, and adequate housing? Nobody should be paying $800 or $900 a month in rent for a 2-bedroom apartment with lead.
That ain't right.
But that's the reality. And the reality is if greed continues to take over, the bubble is going to burst. And when the bubble bursts, I can't wait to see the faces on everyone who we said, we told you so. We told you this was going to happen. We told you people were going to die. We told you people were going to be homeless. And you ignored us. We are tired of being ignored. And this is one action all across the state in which we stand with solidarity with Rochester, with Utica, with Syracuse, with New York City, with Albany, with everyone. Because the reality is this is not an upstate problem. This is not a downstate problem. This is not a Buffalo problem. This is not a New York problem. This is a global problem.
Yes.
So, as we continue to frame the abuses that we face from greedy developers and from greedy landlords, I also want to point out the National Grid rate case, which my coworker Kelly Camacho can speak to a lot more. But I will say that at a time when tenants cannot pay rent and are facing evictions, that is not the time to up their utility bills.
That ain't right.
We need a true moratorium, not just on evictions, but on utility shutoffs. Because as winter approaches, no one should be without heat, like I was, with a hole in my window and a little space heater because the landlord wouldn't fix it.
That ain't right.
And no one should be without running water. So if Kelly will come up, she can explain board. We'll trade off phones.
Thank you.
I'll take your phone. You take the microphone. I love you. Do you think?
So, my name is Kelly Camacho, Kellycamacho. I'm the climate justice organizer over at Push Buffalo. So, you might be confused. You might be asking yourself, she about to talk about the planet? I'm not really sure what's going on. So, let me take some time to explain. So, right now, it's cold. It's cold, right? It's cold. We live in Buffalo, New York. We have some extreme weather conditions here in Buffalo, New York. And so currently in Western New York, National Grid has decided they want to open a rate case to try to raise their rates during this time. It's not right. So the reason we're here today with the cancel rent portion is that in Buffalo, homeowners are already paying more than 30% of their income towards rent and towards mortgage and utilities. So when you look at renters, you guys are paying 56% of your income towards rent and utilities.
That ain't right.
That ain't right. Because when you don't own your home, homeowners can decide to just not weatherize because they're not responsible for your utility bill. So as you continue to try and stay warm in your house that's not properly insulated, you have to come out of pocket for that. And homeowners don't want to be responsible for that.
That ain't right.
So not only is that bad for you guys, but it is inherently bad for our planet as we're using more and more gas and electricity. And you know what? As I'm sitting out here today, I'm feeling the cold in my hands. My hands are starting to get cold. This isn't even the worst of what we're going to face. This is Buffalo, New York. When we can't afford to pay our heat, when our electricity gets turned off, it gets cold. So our lives are inherently at stake. You guys shouldn't be forced to choose between whether you're going to buy groceries or if you're going to have your heat on or if you're going to get kicked out of your home. These are people's lives that are at stake. So on a regular day, it's hard to afford the bills that we are being given by National Grid. And I want to point out, I testified yesterday against the National Grid rate hike. And one of the things I kept hearing over and over again was how nice National Grid is, that they give donations all the time. One of the things people pointed out was they want to give, the headline of their press release was they want to give $50 million in COVID relief. This money isn't coming out of their pockets. This is money that people were already billed. This isn't coming out of their profit margins. This isn't a gift to you. We're paying for each other to have our heat kept on. Meanwhile, they want to earn that right on back by increasing the rate.
That ain't right.
That ain't right. That ain't right. So what I'm asking you guys to do, yesterday the rate case started the public hearings. So today I'm asking you to keep an eye out. October 7th, that's the next day to testify. If you can't make it October 7th, it's all online. You can also make public comments online. Let's tell them that during this time, especially, we are not taking a rate increase. Buffalo went from 2018 in March to having 3 times the amount of unemployment now due to COVID. So I don't understand, where do they want the money to come from? We didn't have it before, and we sure don't have it now.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You think it's a game?
So,
You think it's a joke? You think it's a game? You think it's a joke? You think it's a game? You think it's a joke?
so the purpose of today is not just a call for canceling rent. It's not just a call for an eviction moratorium. It's not just for some of us to stand up here and tell you what we've been dealing with and how many times we've had to argue with state legislators and all the BS that they try to tell us. But today is the day to have tenants actually speak out and tell their story and talk about what they've been dealing with. And one person I want to bring up would be Adam Bojack, who is going to talk about a client of his anonymously, who wants their story told, but due to a lot of personal reasons, would prefer not to actually have their name and their face be out there yet.
Hi, my name is Adam Bojack. I'm an attorney here in Buffalo, and I do a lot of work with tenants because tenants so often don't know their rights. And so what I try to do is speak with them before they end up here, because once they're here, it's already over, right? So I got a call. I spoke with a tenant just yesterday who said that he caught his house manager in the basement who was putting the plate back on the switchboard. And so after he left and they had a confrontation outside, he went back down and found out that he had broken off and pulled all the fuses out of the fuse box.
That ain't right.
Right. And so then somebody else in the house noticed that the water was off. So he called the water company. Somebody came to turn the water back on, and all of a sudden it started shooting out of a pipe that had been sliced. So this guy came over, sabotaged the water, sabotaged the electricity, and then anonymously called CPS and reported children living in a house without electricity or water.
That ain't right.
These are the lengths that landlords are going to protect their possessions, their property, because to them, property is more important than people.
That
And
ain't
that ain't right. That ain't right. And so we're here to say, cancel the rent, right? There are so many bills that are in front of the New York legislature right now that could take care of so many problems that we're facing, but they're not taking any action. The governor's not taking action. The Senate's not taking any action. The Assembly's not taking any action. So we are saying, cancel the rent. This could have been taken care of a long time ago, because
That's right.
back when everything shut down, we knew that jobs were going to be lost. Something like 40 to 50% of all the jobs that have been lost are not coming back, right? And so people haven't been able to pay their rent in months, and now you're going to lift the moratorium eventually. You can't keep kicking that can down the road. So we lift the moratorium, and those people are all going to end up here, getting evicted because they've gone months without having a job. How do you pay rent if you don't have a job?
That's right.
So everything is just snowballing and snowballing, and all these millions of tenants, 1.5 million tenants statewide, are going to be facing eviction. And it's going to be an absolute nightmare. Everything that we think about our economy is going to be turned upside down. So we are here to demand they cancel the rent. It's as simple as that. Thank you.
Woo!
You think it's a game? You think it's a joke? You think it's a game?
They think it's a joke.
You think it's a game?
They think it's a joke.
So I will now give anonymous testimony from another tenant who has current other events going on in which going public might then disturb. This woman lives in my neighborhood. I've been to her house, I've taken pictures, I've seen the conditions. Her back door does not properly lock.
That ain't right.
Not right.
How many of y'all want to live with doors that don't lock?
Nope.
No, not us.
I know I don't.
Can I say something about that neighbor?
Oh,
Can I just say something about that door? I've witnessed also as a pushing volunteer, this door that does not lock proper. When you go to open the door, it opens as if there's no latch to lock or hinge. It's those old fire safe doors that when you pull it the right way, it opens. And this landlord has currently sold the property to Prince Talia to keep from being in trouble with that property as well.
That ain't right.
there are parts of her heating system that are falling apart. The covering, the grates for the vents, one of them actually fell out and hit her in the head while she was trying to
That ain't
go,
right.
while she was
That
going
ain't
up
right.
and down her stairs.
That ain't right.
She has water damage in multiple parts of her house, and there is a door leading to her attic to outside. I don't understand why, because it's not a back porch, that is broken, which means there are cats coming in, and they are leaving droppings in her attic.
That ain't right.
So she cannot even store anything because of the rats and other pests that are coming into her attic, and the landlord has not fixed that door and will not. The landlord's response to this has been, I send people to fix it, but he does it without proper 24 to 48 hours notice, which means she is not home at those times. She has doctor's appointments herself. She has other business that she has to handle in order to try and make sure her household stays afloat. So when you send a mysterious man to this woman's house while she is not home, and it is her oldest child babysitting the younger ones, when an 18-year-old kid has to be responsible for the house, and a mysterious man shows up at the door talking about, I'm here to fix something.
Nope.
As adults, we don't want no mysterious person to talk about, I need to come in your house.
That's what I say.
I'm supposed to fix something. Who are you?
I don't even want the people I know
And why
coming
was
in
I
my
not told
house.
you was coming?
I did.
But that's how he defends his side. That's what the landlord says is adequate attempts to make repairs. And mind you, they show up for one repair at a time. We gonna fix this window that's broken. What about my heat and my door don't lock? What about my water damage? And they believe that he believes he is still entitled to the rent money.
Oh, no. Cancel rent.
While this woman is on a fixed income and already struggling because she doesn't know that if anything increases, how she pay for it. And you believe, living in those substandard conditions, that she's still supposed to pay you the rent, which is supposed to be to have a safe, stable, accessible home. One where we feel safe. That's what we pay for. We don't pay you just for the roof. A lot of places with a roof. But we pay you to have the opportunity to have a home, to raise children in. And that is the conditions you expect us to pay you for?
No.
Mind you, this same tenant, her house is a part of that 157
That's
that is
right.
listed by the
That's
Attorney
right.
General as part of that lawsuit.
That's right. 30.
How many of y'all want to live with lead paint?
Oh.
Nope.
How many special needs kids gotta live in these conditions before something's done, and how many of our future children, our future of our city is gonna be poisoned and left before something's done?
Not one more.
Not one more.
So I know a lot of y'all know this one. When I say housing is a human right, y'all say fight, fight, fight. We go on that one?
Yeah.
Housing is a human right.
Fight, fight, fight.
Housing is a human right.
Fight, fight, fight.
Housing is a human right.
Fight, fight, fight.
The problem is that our legislators and these landlords do not believe that housing is a human right. They do not believe that people deserve a place to live that is safe. They value the money in their pockets more than a human right. Which means they value the money in their pockets more than anybody standing here. And the fact that any of us are disposable to somebody based on a couple $100 is disgusting. It is despicable and it is wrong.
That ain't right.
It ain't right at all.
Housing is a human right. Fight, fight, fight. Housing is a human right.
Fight, fight, fight.
Housing is a human right.
Fight, fight, fight.
So we're just going to continue on with the speakers as we go through the day. Eventually, we'll have some performers in a little bit to break up some of the monotony. And I would rather think, would you like to go next? And I'll hold the banner.
My name is James. I'm a leader of Vocal New York from Buffalo. Hill, James Hill. I'm a leader of Vocal New York in Buffalo. I am emotionally, mentally, physically, financially stressed out during this COVID-19. I cannot pay the rent. How can I? How can someone pay the rent when you don't have a job, you don't have a money, you have no income coming in? How can you pay your rent? I'm here to talk about cancel the rent. 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 I'd like to bring up another speaker from Vocal New York.
I'm here. First of all, my name is Orzont, O-R-E-Z-O-N-T. Last name Dragons, R-A-G-A-N-S. I am a Vocal New York leader, and I'm homeless here in Buffalo. And I don't go to no shelters because it's unsafe due to the COVID-19.
Talk about it.
Okay? They don't have nothing for me to go.
Tell them about it.
It's messing with my mental health. I feel unsafe, not knowing if I'm going to wake up within the next hour, although the next day and minute is not promised to any of us.
What do we need?
We need housing. We deserve to have a home to live. Okay? And not only that, it's very heartbreaking. Even if there's family members, you can't even live with a family member that try to co-op on the rent because they say, oh, we cannot let you live there. We're going to evict you. You got to leave within 2 to 3 days. So where is it to go? Shut it down, cancel the rent, get rid of these slum landlords.
What do we want?
Oh,
Yep.
Housing is a human right. Fight, fight, fight. Housing is a human right. Fight, fight, fight. Housing is a human right.
fight, fight, fight.
Hello, my name is Veronica Hemphill Nichols. I'm founder of the Fruitvale McCarley Garden Housing Task Force. I'm here today because I am a tenant. I've always been a tenant. But I'm here today to talk about illegal evictions, which is a pandemic no one's talking about. And how I know is I was a victim myself, okay? I raised my family in the Fruitvale, 16 years, lived in the same rental unit. When it was bought out by some developers working in partnership with the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus, they wanted me out, okay? And my issue is what happens in a city courtroom and housing court, okay, where they have I'll call it a proclivity of violating already existing laws in favor of landlords. And I'll make this quick. Because I know housing law, having spent 5 years as a liaison under Judge Henry J. Nowak, I know housing law. And I was able to hold them up for 8 months before I could find suitable rental. Renting is not easy in this city. You find more landlords, you talking about scumlords, okay, who's raising rent as if it was high-end rentals, okay? But my problem is what's happening in housing court. There are 2 hearing examiners, and I'm telling you, they have no problem defying the law in favor of the owner. And I'll sum it up by saying this. When they finally received the eviction, they evicted me from a light pole. Okay?
That ain't right.
That address they used, 248 Grape, is the address of a light pole. My address, 350 East North, the rear house.
You're stupid.
But what's worse is that the judge gave them that order after giving them much proof, even because the house was in court for violations 3 years prior to the owner, the new owners. They had information in their files of the exact address, but yet he gave them the order to evict me from a light pole. So my thing is, we can ask for cancel rent, we can ask for moratoriums, we can ask for legislation. How is that going to play out in housing court? And right now, my organization is working with the tenants of Pilgrim Village. That's a hot mess. Stay tuned, because when they talk about, well, we're going to relocate the tenants, well, let me tell you something. They've been trying to evict the tenants for at least the past 7 years.
Yep.
And there's a question when it comes to, my question, when it comes to McGuire, do you really own the property? Just because the judge gave you a temporary deed based off the fact that Mark Trammell may not even own it himself. So the judge gives you a temporary deed, and then you're going to start planning to build God knows what, just all kind of stuff. And in the meantime, tenants have no idea where they're going to go. They don't know how they're going to go, okay? So it's not about me personally. It's really not about any of us. It's about all of us collectively. And when we see, even if we're going through our own stuff, the best way to help ourselves is when we see someone else struggling. We jump in and we help them.
That's right.
That's how it works. Thank you.
Housing is a human right.
So, just real quick, we're going to open it up. If anyone has any questions, I'll field some questions. Then we'll continue on. Maybe have one more speaker, and then bring up a performer to break up some of this, monotony, and go from there.
You talked about the moratorium, the state moratorium being insufficient and ineffective. Besides the duration, you talked about things that added a year onto that. What's wrong with the moratorium? And also, what about the CDC moratorium, which would seem to supersede state?
So, what we've seen, I'll answer the supersede part first. What we've seen actually across the country is that if a state has a stronger, more universal moratorium, that's been considered to supersede the CDC, and then I believe vice versa. The problem with the moratorium is that up until now we've had what is basically a universal, but the Tenant Safe Harbor Act is not universal, and there are a lot of loopholes through it because it's not specifically stated that there are no evictions for any reason. So that's the problem, is that any landlord with a good lawyer can come in, find a way to manipulate it, and somehow if they don't end up with the eviction, then get that money judgment. And that money judgment is then going to create the long-term issues that we don't want, like the messed up credit scores.
What is the shortcoming? What is not covered in the Safe Harbor?
So, the Safe Harbor Act is supposed to apply to non-payment of rent, and that's what the idea is for the protections around. But if you really only focus on non-payment of rent, that means that the landlord can say, oh no, I'm taking them to court for violating a lease or for this reason. And the problem is, once you're here, the legal counsel people typically get is they sit down, they look at the papers, and they go, okay, we got about 15 minutes to figure this out. I don't know what we're going to do exactly. We're going to try and buy you a little time. And so what ends up happening most of the time is that once you're in there, it becomes a mutual stipulation, which is where both parties just agree to separate. But that only gives you about 2 weeks to vacate the property as a tenant, and then a forceful removal will start to happen. And so the Safe Harbor Act doesn't prevent that process from starting or happening. This a universal moratorium would. It just allows the court process to happen, and once the court process happens, there are a lot of ways that things can be manipulated. And we believe no one should be taken to court for that reason.
For a reason of non-payment, or for a reason of...
We believe no one should be taken to court, and the reason is because of the manipulation that can happen once you're in there.
What about if the landlord has a drug infested apartment? Landlords complain that they can't even pick out the tenants who are, they may be paying the rent, but there are drug issues, there are crime issues, they're destroying the property, something like that. How does that get?
So, what we believe is that, one, those tend to be the outliers, because most of us do not want to put ourselves in the position of risking going to jail, because that's worse than having a place to live. And I've seen unfortunately, that since COVID has started, a lot more people have turned to that route because of jobs. And so I will not say that it does not happen, and I will admit that there has probably been an upturn since March of these things. I will say that if there's not a lease and it's a month to month, it actually is not all that hard to get people out. And if you have a lease, typically if you bring it to court, there's a lot of times that the judges will then rule in favor. And if people are not evicted, it kind of shows that the landlord sometimes hasn't even really taken the aggressive standpoint. I mean, maybe they're trying to be reasonable and are like, well, I don't want to have to evict people, which is not something we normally see, so that would be a nice mindset to have. But I will say that in a lot of leases, like drugs, even having drugs in the apartment, tend to be a violation of the lease. And a direct violation of the lease, most judges are not going to let that slide.
But a blanket moratorium would prevent that.
Yes, it would. But what that does is that only buys the time. And in the meantime, if they're still paying the rent, that most landlords' problems has been that they're not getting paid, and so the blanket moratorium is going. Like, our plan is for it to end. We don't want it to be a universal forever. The problem is that we need it to be universal until the state comes with cancel rent or some other solution. So what's really going on here is that the state refusing to act on the tenants that are being responsible and just want to have somewhere to live is why the moratorium is continuing to be extended. So if they act and they protect the tenants who are not selling drugs in the house and who just want a place to live, the moratorium can end. And then the eviction process can continue. But we cannot have that go as long as 1.5 million tenants are facing eviction. So realistically, if the legislatures take action, then we can move forward from this, and then the landlords can start their process. So if the landlords truly have an issue, they need to bring it up about their state legislators and the governor, who are refusing to take proper solution actions and are happy kicking the can down the road. That's what they've done, and that's been their goal, to just continue month by month, play it off. And so if they're really outraged, that's where their outrage needs to go. And those are the people that they need to then hold accountable for. You are not protecting the community, which is allowing this to extend, which is then allowing them to abuse my property.
And then you also talked about the idea of rent relief for small mom and pop landlords, and not for the bigger ones.
Yes.
How would that work, and how would it become?
So what happens is it would create a fund which the landlords would then prove financial hardship, which is exactly what tenants have to do for the CDC moratorium.
That's right.
So what it does is it takes the burden off of tenants having to prove financial hardship and puts it to the landlords to prove, like, this is my property, this is how much it's worth, this is what I pay, and like, I cannot pay that. And so then it distinguishes who can eat this and who can't. And again, the problem is that we want it to be that specific, and rental relief, broad rental relief, is not. And if $500 is going to every landlord, if there's 70 tenants that live in an apartment building and their owner is a rich developer, every $500 that those 70 tenants get goes to that landlord, which should instead be put into a hardship fund and distributed to the small mom and pop shop.
Yes.
We're taking rent relief takes the money away from what could be given to them and then puts it in the pockets of rich developers.
That's right.
That
ain't right.
Why are we explaining this? That's not the story.
Because
Yeah.
if you're out here protesting and demanding.
But wait,
things,
the reason I want to intervene, look, this is not the first time they start talking about canceling the rent. The cries of the people been going on way back. Now all of a sudden you got fake politicians, and you got those who are part of the conspiracy that have undermined the people acting like they just got it. They didn't just get it. And for people to stand out here in pain to talk about what they've gone through, that's not the issue. The issue is the non-serving politicians that are part of the system, that is part of the structure that has been trapping and denying folks. And think folks gonna stand out here and tell their story? No, we're really out here to tell you this. We are exercising, as the Bill of Rights said, whenever the people are not served, it's our duty. It's our duty to call them out, to assemble and make our complaints known, and not only that, to use the electoral process. That's where we're at this moment. All these flakes that's acting like they don't see something or hear something, and they see people being suffering in their home. They heard the cries, and now here they come at the 11th hour because they want to get behind the so-called COVID money that may be coming. They act like they done something. They haven't done a damn thing. This mayor, he should be ashamed of himself. He talk about, he'll get on the phone, on the TV and talk about doing the census and then say, next time you wonder why your streets ain't done, it's because of the census. No, I'll tell you why we got such a dilapidated city and why so many people, I put my mask on, sorry about that. But I'll tell you why our city is in such a terrible state. Where we have a donut hole where the majority of people of color are the victim. It's because of the non-representation of our electeds and the falsity of this mayor that act like he done made a city that works for all. He hasn't. And the money that flows, people understand. It don't just go to white candidates, it go to black candidates who sell out their community. How does he lead the huddle of the community knowing our concern and then all of a sudden forget the plays he ought to make? You see that in other communities? You see it in South Buffalo? You see it among those who serve and represent the other areas? You see them abandoning ship? Hell no.
Put that on the paper and give it to the governor.
Give it to the governor.
Put that on the piece of paper and give it to the governor.
Yeah, well, we want to be right.
So to give a last final closing statement, it's not fair when tenants, we have no problem making tenants prove the financial burden. Right. If tenants were rich, we wouldn't be paying somebody rent. When mortgages tend to be lower if we own the house we live in than what we pay rent for. And if we can make tenants prove financial hardship, we can make landlords prove financial hardship.
That's right.
Yeah. It's only at that point it's only fair, especially if we want to be fair to mom and pop landlords, because the money they should be getting does not deserve to be in the pockets of billionaires. And then I will bring up the last point about the CDC moratorium, is that the CDC moratorium only applies to the non-payment of rent, which, as we mentioned, can be circumvented by claiming the eviction and other reasons. It also is a legally binding document, which states if for some odd reason the court decides you were not 100% truthful, which means the court could say, okay, you somehow had a job from May to June, so you didn't really be unemployed the entire time. It just gives the court that jurisdiction to say that, and now the tenant who filled out that form for the CDC moratorium is subject to perjury charges. They're not just getting a money judgment, they can actually get a criminal charge on their record.
That ain't right.
Which can then affect their future housing and a background check when a landlord who's trying to rent the apartment says, oh, you have a record now, so I'm not going to rent it. So again, there's a lot of reasons, both short-term and long-term, that isn't adequate.
Landlords need background check too.
That was the last question, sir. That was the last one. That was the last one. That was the last question. Sorry.
You want me to publish?
Well, we have other things we have to do today.
If you're interrupting us,
Story been going on.
We're asking questions about fairness, and we're talking about developers that have
You don't want
millions of
some
dollars.
story. If you want a story, just go tell them the people are hurting and they wonder when the politician and the system don't get right and get on their side. You don't want no story.
I understand, but if you don't want to talk about it, I'll go
Okay,
You
so
can do it.
we're going to move out of the dark and into the light. We're going to keep it going here. All right, y'all, so we have a couple performers because we believe in cultural organizing as well. I want to welcome MC Kane up to the mic. We appreciate you being here.
You think it's a game? You think it's a game? All humans deserve a house.
Cancel rent, stop it now.
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 Cancel rent, shut it down.
Shut it down. Shut it down.
If we don't get it,
Shut it down.
if we don't get it,
Shut it down.
if we don't get it,
Shut it down.
if we
Stop it now. Stop it now. Cancel rent. Stop it now.
Shut it down. Shut it down. Shut it down. Shut it down.
All right, y'all. MC King.
They have not been able to issue those during the moratorium unless it was
The rich minority oppresses majority. Just a verdict, cause money brings superiority. And you would say you know what that means. If you don't have money, you know what that means. And we trapped like we in a cage, working for the wage. From day to day, lost like we got no way. While China ships iPhones to the USA. But we living from day to day, lost like we got no way. And we need to find another place in time so we can be in time. Look, it's about time. Open up our minds from the blind. We got stuff from all these lines. The devil's giving us lines, giving them lies, going in lines. We got things want to look to make the took.
Could have just wrote him a novel instead.
Take a look, what if I create my own?
My name is MC King. We'll probably have a few more speakers after him, and then we'll bring up Damiano. After Saint finishes, I would say have Warren and Bar, and then whichever one doesn't do their input.
Dumbass is a fucking terrible person. So word, this whole thing you're trying to have like calling landlord. Like, that's definitely not. You're trying to like definitely have you that was fine. You're on now, right? You know, Kevin.
she was home, she got no rest. Cause mama's sleeping, spent all of her check on booze that she could barely afford. And daddy's hitting on the mama, it can't be ignored. Maybe it started when they turned away from the Lord. Or maybe the just world is just too cold. I'm a mama, why you drink so much? Protect our souls. MC Six is Mike.
Here. Oh, it's me. I'll take it. Thank you. All right. Is everybody up? Because I don't know if we've all had our coffee today.
Thank you.
Let me hear one more time. Housing is a human right. Housing is a human right. One more time. Housing is a human right.
Fight.
All right, thank you. Let me get the incredible loose balance up here to say some more. Hey, folks. I know that a lot of us have probably heard, and I might be preaching to the choir, but I want y'all to understand that this housing situation didn't come about because of COVID and the pandemic. This was
The
already
speakers
an
shouldn't take too
epidemic,
long.
okay?
So I'd say probably after the speakers go, then we can just start. Like you can disperse if you got, before your parking has to be paid again. We'd rather you just disperse. Because it'll just be Damiano performing, and we can just close it. I'll close it out. Don't worry about it.
Right there, and a lot of our politicians choose not to see the people who are homeless, okay? I stand here and I try to represent the elders, a lot of us who worked hard, who were renters, who are now trying to hold on to our homes because the banks are trying to take it. A lot of us who out of fear, didn't rob, but almost did, to keep our homes, okay? We begged, we borrowed, we did what we had to do to make sure that our funding institutions got our money, okay? But, still all in all, that's just month to month. We have to look at the fact that homelessness is an everyday problem. And a lot of us look to realize that I am old. I can't sleep outside, okay? I cannot take a chance on getting sicker than I am. I carry my medication because that's important to me, okay? When we think of people who are homeless, we have to look at the impact that it does on a whole system. I was sitting down last night trying to figure out how much it actually would cost to be homeless, and it's got to be anywhere between $40,000 plus, not counting ER visits, not counting mental health problems, not counting any of the other things that can happen to us, because when we are homeless, we get depressed, we get attacked, we get raped, we get molested. That is PTSD, okay? We go through a lot of things, and I talk to a lot of people who are homeless, and they have gone through this. No one should have to live in this way, in this manner. But we need to be telling the legislators, we need to be telling Housing Court, you have not been doing things right. You have not been taking care of the people in this community. We have had gentrification, push us out, push another group in, okay? They raised our rents, so we can't
redirecting, because we need to be redirecting the monies that go into our police budgets and all those budgets that they feel are important, and look and say, hey, our people are important and we need to do what we can medically, physically, to make sure that they are stable. So all I want people to understand, and I know that I'm preaching to the choir because I see them kind of not listening, is to understand that as people, we need to be seen. As homeless people, it will continue to happen if we don't pay attention. And that's all I want to say.
All right. You can come, Ms. Mark.
All right, let me ask you guys real quick. What day are you going to go testify against National Bridge Rating?
October 7th!
October 7th! And if you can't go, it's online. If you can't make that, you can still comment online. I want to make sure that's in your mind. October 7th. You can do it. You can comment anytime. And now I'm going to pass the mic. Miss Denise Barr, could you come give us a couple words?
Yeah, I'm good in National Bridge. I'm so strong.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be out here with you today. On Hill, I want to tell you, I respect you, man, because when somebody comes at me and tells me if I got drugs in my house,
Right.
if I'm paying my rent, what business is it of yours what I got in my house?
Right.
If I'm paying my
Yeah.
rent, I got a right to have whatever I want to have. If my lease says I can't have pets, okay, then I can't have pets.
Right.
But ain't none of your business what else I have in my house.
All right.
So I respect that you talk to the man, but you need to set him straight next time.
Right.
We're talking about these people that are losing their homes. We're talking about cancel the rent. We're talking about the homeowners that are stressing right now because they're dealing with taxes and they're trying to figure out how they're going to manage to survive the rest of this year. Let's be honest about this. This stuff is strategic. They cut off bus lines so that people couldn't get out to where the jobs are.
Yeah.
They shut down the jobs so that people couldn't get money to be able to pay their rent.
Yeah.
And now they want to terrorize people and blame them like it's their fault that they can't afford to live. It ain't right.
It ain't right.
Housing is a human right. And people have a right to be able to put their house, their head down, someplace where they can be safe and where they can live. Safe, affordable housing has been a crisis in this country before COVID started, and it's not finished now. We need to stand up and we need to say, this is not right and this is not how you're going to treat people. Our government has failed us. Our government has failed people in this country who can't afford to live properly. It ain't right.
It ain't right.
We need to stand up and we need to fight back and let them know that we're not going to take it. We're not going to see our loved ones out in the street. We're not going to lose our homes just because they think that they can commercialize our communities. They want to make sure that they bring a different set of people out to our neighborhoods. They want to make sure that somebody else lives in our homes. Well, let's let them make sure that to let them know that somebody else can live in your home too. We can
Right.
vote you out, and then maybe you need to worry about your rent. We need to make sure that we stand up together because we know that when we fight, we win.
We're down to
Right.
Cass.
Cass.
Oh, Cass.
Jim Cass.
Thank you.
Jim Anderson and Cass Brown.
Okay, at the same
Jim,
time?
Jim Anderson first, yeah.
All right, so we've been doing a lot of people who have just honestly made me want to see them drop the mic, but I don't think this mic can handle that. So next I'm going to call up Jim Anderson.
All right.
Thank you. Let me just not apologize, but
Don't apologize.
Let me bear witness
Please
that
don't.
sometimes I get sick and tired of those who always claim they got the story on us. That be
Right.
all the media, whether it be print or whether it be TV. I get upset because the story is not new.
Right.
I mean, the reason we are out here in this organized effort and have always been out here is because of the pain that each of us have felt individually. Think about it.
Right.
Folks are painful, and out of that pain and them crying out, they heard others crying out, and you know what happens when people cry out? They think, we ought to do something. Well, what we gonna do? Well, we ought to try something. What do we try? We try to tell those who say they represent us, who come for our vote, who knock on our door and say all the sweet things, and when you try and talk to them, they don't listen. Or when you try and get in touch with them, they invisible. And when you do corner them and lay your case, they act like they don't understand, or they pull that old trick, we gotta study. All they do is sit on it.
Yep.
And don't do nothing with it.
Yep.
So now we arrived at this point because our crying led us to protest. The protest that they tried to say was nothing but gangs in the street was very organized. More organized than they could appreciate.
Right.
Particularly the ones who claim they serve us. Even they couldn't appreciate it. Even as the people said, no justice, no peace, they thought we was just having a slogan. They didn't understand two clear signs. One is peace demands action. And the action has to be citizens acting. Whether we hurt or whether we on the high pod, we together supposed to care about each other. But what we have had is city leaders and institutions that divide us. So we get city leaders who sit in their position and act like they can't move on the behalf of the people's interests because there's who? A boogeyman? No, generally it's a salesman. That means they done sold the people out trying to gain a career that is not worthy for them to be in.
Right.
And then we look further in. All the evidence across the nation shows institutions that have been part of the conspiracy to deny people of color and to stigmatize people who have been undermined by a repressive and oppressive economic system that hasn't allowed them to be included. And when they're included, don't want to give them a livable wage.
Right.
That system all over the nation has been undergirded by weak, sellout, non-serving politicians, not only at the highest level in the White House, but in the local house, City Hall. The things they're acting on now, they're acting on it because the water is getting deep. And they're doing like they did when Dr. King walked. When Dr. King walked, because you're just like him, he created good trouble. And y'all creating good trouble, but they mad because it means they got to do something and they're not willing to do it.
Right.
And we understand we're coming down the road to what they call election day. They want you to kind of stay busy and not focus. Some of these characters we'll be able to deal with on November 3rd. But even those that think they're getting away, we will continue to organize. We must not forget. We don't have to come out here crying to them. We come out here and demand their action, and we don't have to demand anything further. They understand if they don't meet the demand, our next action is for we have to do what we have to do. And it ain't none of their business what we're doing.
All right,
so
yeah.
I'm going to shut up because I don't need to be the last word. The tenants were the first word on this raging fire that is ravaging our communities everywhere, and the tenants should be the final word.
They will, yeah.
Anywhere we show up.
That's
and this place, this place is a sad place. It's a horrible place. And the burden that they are part of putting on the people is shameful. But you know what? We didn't come this far to turn around.
That's
and
right.
we are not afraid.
All right.
And we will win.
All right. Good. So the last
All right,
word.
so like Jim Anderson said, we're going to be hearing from some tenants. Landlords might not care about you, but we sure do. Cassie Brenner, could you come up here to speak?
All right.
Hi. I'm locking my speech. Good morning. Many of you may remember me from my last rally I held in front of court in July of this year. Mask. Sorry guys. I'm taking it down so you can hear me. Many of you may remember me from my last rally we held in front of Housing Court in July. For those of you who don't remember me or know me, my name is Cassandra. I'm a tenant in Buffalo. Been here since 2005. I can validate everything that everyone has said here today. That's why when they spoke the DJ today, when he spoke those last songs about his soul crying from homelessness. I've been there. I've been there multiple times. I come downtown, I see homeless people asking me for change to get a meal because they can't get food stamps because they don't have residence. They can't get health care. Health care is pivotal to our housing as well as housing is pivotal to our health care. They go hand in hand like milk and cookies. Okay? Like I said, I speak as a mom. My kids were poisoned with lead as I spoke in my last rally. Today I'm not here about lead. Today I'm here about slumlords that want to take advantage of senior citizens, our veterans. They wanted to sit up here and interrogate us about why we want to cancel rent. Well, I'm sorry, our veterans is a very sore spot for me. I protect ours and serve ours. We are a country united for the people, by the people. How do we get through to these landlords and politicians that don't want to help? We protest. We vocalize our amendment rights. We support the Constitution for which they gave us by the people, for the people, when this country was built. Now I'm here demanding that we have safe, affordable housing, i.e., okay, he wanted to bring up drugs. Well, here today as Push Buffalo volunteer, I'd like to stand up and say, what about us that are going without hot water during a pandemic? Since before the pandemic has gone on, I've been poisoned with 15 ppms of carbon monoxide poisoning from BAU management at 151 Plater. That ain't right. And that's in the rear apartment. I get told by many people who ask me, why do you stand up and fight for the east side of the Broadway Fillmore District? It's the Art Deco community. It's the last relics of the Art Deco. I'm a former volunteer for the CTRC. Not my cause today, but it's still a passion in my heart. I love this city for its architecture. I love this city for its ability to show what we can be. When we unite and we stand together firm as citizens standing for action in the state of New York, asking for our rent to get canceled because when COVID-19 happened, we lost our jobs. Some of us servers, we can't go serve anymore to make our extra ends meet. Those jobs that they call service hospitality jobs that are no longer quote unquote mandatory because of COVID-19 to employ us servers. So we're stuck in derelict communities because, well, why does the system end up forcing the low income? We're not the 1%. Now back to these slumlords. No hot water at 151 Plater. No heat. In my tenant bill of rights, according to what I was given by the Attorney General, it says that I have the right to have hot water and heat. My
all right.
failed multiple times at this apartment. And I'm not alone. Landlords take advantage of us low-income families. It's not just the veterans. It's not just the disabled. It's people with mental health issues also that they take advantage of. They take advantage of the fact that the Attorney General has said that we're entitled to service pets. How do we get our service pets registered so that's the way we can keep our service animals so we can improve our health? We have protections in our Constitution that are not being heard at this building. We need our rights to be heard. We need to be able to take a landlord for a warrant of ability because once we're evicted, we can no longer take them for action or hold them accountable. When is the landlords going to be held accountable like they have made us held accountable for all the times they want to say we don't pay rent, but when we withhold rent for decent living? I was told by my landlord, Leo Shatakan, I believe is how you pronunciate his name. If I improperly pronunciated his name, I apologize, sir. And then you have Maria Pellegrini. I was told in November 2019 when I returned home to a rental where I was taken proper care of at one time. I thought I was doing the right thing. Getting back with the landlord that did take care of me. They're hard to come by. So, when the old tenants ended up destroying the rental and the heater duct stopped working, he just put aluminum foil tape over. Sealing in a filthy diaper. In a ceiling heater. The thing stopped working after I had burnt out the relay switch, keeping it at 90 degrees. This past winter in April when it was cold. Push Buffalo, Harper dropped me off the space heater thanks to Push. I did not freeze. My landlord couldn't keep me warm, but Push could. We're people united for sustainable housing. What is sustainable about a house where you have to constantly go out and buy chemicals and supplies that the landlord should be facilitating as it's his property? Where's the accountability? We get listed down here as non-compliant, disgruntled tenants that don't want to pay rent because we're drug addicts or whatever the story is today in the headlines. Is that right?
No.
What are we going to do? Fight back. What are we going to do?
Stand up, fight back.
I don't think I can hear you. I'm going to pull a Hulk Hogan here. I can hear you.
Sit.
Yeah. One more again. Can you hear me? Fight back. My God, do something. Thank you. Hear us because we have rights. I said it in the opening, and I'm here in Buffalo saying it today. We're tired of being taken advantage of.
Yep.
It needs to stop. We're
stop.
here to fight, and we're here to be heard.
All right.
You're going to hear us today. We have tenants' rights according to the Attorney General, and we're going to take action because we are citizens, action of the United States and of New York. Of Push Buffalo. We are residents of the United States, first and foremost, by the Constitution, for the people, by the people, protesting peacefully. No violence today. I'm going to hand this over to Harper.
All right, we're going. Give it to Kelly.
This mic is hot. All right, so we got one more person coming at you. I'm going to introduce our very own Damiano from our street team.
Yes. All right. Yeah. Yes.
I appreciate it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
What's the Bluetooth?
The Bluetooth, yeah.
I appreciate everybody coming out here. This is important issues. For real, we need to cancel the
radio. Line in.
I got a couple songs for you. I got 3 songs.
Bluetooth mode. Bluetooth connecting. Please wait.
Hey.
Bluetooth connected.
Alright, I got 3 songs for y'all. They're from my project a year ago. I named it Melanin Collie. Melanin Collie to me is the pensive sadness that comes with being black or brown. Whenever we talk about mental illness, I feel like we always center white folks in the upper class, and I don't think that that's right because there's a lot of people there's a lot of people who are sick in our neighborhoods. I rode the bus over here trying to get ready to rehearse, and I was crying because our people are so jacked up, and it's designed to be that way. Why are we one of the coldest, most climate change targeted places, and none of our bus stops have heat? You know what I'm saying? Why is it I gotta watch old Vieja sit down on the street? She's standing up, she's disabled, she gotta wait for the bus. There's no seats, there's no heat in the seats. That ain't right. That ain't right. Right? So I made this album and I wrote songs to try to diagnose some of this pain that we deal with in the city while talking about my home. My first song is called Boulevard. Once again, my name is Damiano. I also go by the Miserable Genius because I think that with knowledge comes power, but with knowledge also comes sadness. Once you start to know what the world is doing to you and your people, it's kind of hard to be happy. Feel me? You gotta laugh at this. You gotta take care of yourself. That's how you take care of yourself. But it's hard to when you gotta pay for bills and rent and all that other things. It's not okay. You can't focus on getting right if you just trying to pay the bills and keep the lights on, making sure your baby's got something to eat. That ain't right. You don't know my pain. Bible, I transcended the Bible. I killed my former self, no longer checking the vitals. Slow soul snatching souls from dust collected on vinyls. I patrol like a rhino, flow is cold like the cryogenics. Know that shit on Silo City. So misunderstood, so must keep your speakers litty. We just products of the Rust Belt. Chitty chitty bang, that's the sound of the factories. Pop bang bang, that's the sound of the tragedies. Pop guys dropping, now it's hard to feed the family. Arguing non-stop, not hard to see it's damaging. But we're not mad at them because we know they sick too. Gotta be better, baby boy, don't you skip school. We've been cursed since I was in. I hope it skips you. I just hope it skips you. That's what my mama say. That's what my mama say. That's what my mama say. I'm tortured by this pain that I inherited. Generational trauma in my name for inheritance. Mixed race, big face, sick case for heritage. Everywhere I go, somebody wonder who my parents is. Like how they parent him on welfare and fairy tales. Starting off like he goes in the class, but reading very well. Life is constantly in cycles like a merry-go. They robbing us of childhood, that's why we acting very grown. We suffer in silence, we ain't die in need of miracles. I don't believe in white Jesus, best believe I'm spiritual. Melanin, collie, and hex invented by imperials. I'm black and brown babies, a curse on our pigment. Peace, love, and happiness to all the diaspora. I adore you though we different, disorganized and distant. And love to anybody out there listening. And love to anybody out there listening. You don't know, you don't know, you don't know. You don't know, you don't know, you don't. You don't know. You don't know our pain. You don't know our pain. You don't know what we gotta deal with. That dude that was asking about why we selling drugs, you don't know why we selling drugs for. Maybe if we had jobs and wages that paid us okay, and we had to pay for all these medical bills because you got us in a neighborhood that's polluted with mad factories that don't even got jobs no more. They're just taking up space, right? You funding all these police officers, but we don't got no money to give to the people. That don't make no sense. Why is this education so jacked up in this city? Maybe if Byron Brown wasn't scarfing down hot dogs at alarming rates, we would actually have some food and some education for people. This next song is called Working Man.
Yeah, go in.
I love it. This is the best part of my day so far.
Amazing. Just going in.
Yo. Papa was a working man, hustle trying to get that dough. Overtime to no more time, Riverside, Buffalo. Papa was a working man, hustle trying to get that dough. Overtime to no more time, Riverside, Buffalo. My city recession hit, they don't want to see us win. They don't want to see us live.
So I gotta do it big.
Grew up in Riverside, lived by the park. Mama let me play outside until it was dark and them street lights came on, shining the yellow light, wouldn't let me venture far, afraid I'd be a felon type, paranoid of the world, but inside they would yell and fight. Teachers thought I was hella nice, they couldn't see my hellish mind, just a youngin' who had seen more than he probably supposed to. Essence straight to skilling, that's how I would go to school. Elementary, rest in peace, they closed down my old school. Now it's nothing but a memory, but memories they mold you. She say do what mama told you, be all that you wanna be, don't end up like you hit by me around abandoned property where families live in poverty. My heart be breaking honestly, still products of the colonies. I didn't go outside my silence in my head, my R&B. She ignited that spark in me, made me wanna achieve my dreams, get my own Marshall Mathers CD, my own Carter 3. I do this for my family, I'm tired of seeing them suffer. They all